This is Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned, Chapter Equal Opportunity, Section 1. Bounty Supermarket was on Venice Boulevard, miles and miles from Socrates' home. He gaped, or looked with wide eyes, at the glittering palace as he strode across the hot asphalt parking lot. This means that the place looked really nice, and he was in shock or awe as he looked at it. The front wall was made from immense or large glass panes or windows with steel frames to hold them in place. Through the big windows, he could see long lines of customers with baskets full of food. He imagined apples and T-bone steaks, fat hams and extra-large boxes of cereal that they only sold in supermarkets. The checkers were all young women, some of them girls. Most were black women and black girls, taking money and talking back and forth between themselves as they worked, running the packages of food over the computer eye that rang in the price and added it to the total without them having to think a thing. In between the checkout counters, black boys and brown ones loaded up bags for the customers. Socrates walked up to the double glass doors, and they slid open, moaning some deep machine blues. He came into the cool air and cocked his ear to that peculiar music of supermarkets. It means he turned his head. Steel carts wheeling around, crashing together, resounding with the thuds of heavy packages. To resound makes a sound like that. Children squealing and yelling. The footsteps and occasional conversation blended together until they made a murmuring sound that lulled the ex-convict. A murmur is the low sound of conversation where you can't actually understand the words, but it just sounds like people talking. And to lull means to make someone feel calm. There was a definite religious feel to being in the great store. The loftier, high ceilings, the abundance. There are so many things there. The wealth. Dozens of 10s and 20s. In between credit cards and bank cards went back and forth over the counters. Very few customers used coupons. A coupon is a piece of paper that allows you to get a discount on an item that you're purchasing. The cash seemed to be endless. How much money passed over those counters every day? And what would they think if they knew that the man watching them had spent 27 years doing hard time in prison? Hard time means that it was not easy to be in prison, that he had done something really bad. Socrates barked out a single-syllable laugh. They didn't have to worry about him. He wasn't a thief. Or if he was, the only thing he ever took was life. "Sir, can I help you?" Anton Cryer asked. Socrates knew the name because it was right there, on a big badge on his chest. Anton Cryer, assistant manager. He wore tan pants and a blue blazer or jacket with the supermarket's insignia or sign over the badge. "I came for an application," Socrates said. It was a line that he had spent a whole day thinking about, a week practicing. I came for an application. For a couple days, he had practiced saying job application. But after a while, he dropped the word job to make his request sound more sure. But when he went to Stony Weil and told them that he planned to say, "I came for a application," Stony had said that you had to say an application. If you have a word that starts with A, E, I, O, or U, then you got to say an instead of a, Stony had said. Anton Cryer's brow knitted, and he stalled for a moment before asking, "An application for what?" Your brow is your forehead, the space on your face right above your eyes, and to knit means to get wrinkled. And this is an expression we use when we're confused. We scrunch our forehead up, and when we're confused. A job. There, he had said it. It was less than a minute, and this short white man, just a boy really, had already made him beg. "Oh," said Anton Cryer. nodding like a wise elder. Ah, how old are you, sir? Isn't that against the law? Like many other convicts, Socrates was a student of the law. Huh? Asking my age. That's against the law. You can't discriminate against color or sex or religion or infirmity, means if you have a disability, or against age. That's the law. Well, yes, of course it is. I know that. I'm not discriminating against you. It's just that we don't have any openings right now. Why don't you come in the fall when the kids are back at school? Anton leaned to the side, intending to leave Socrates standing there. Hold on, Socrates said. He held up his hands, loosely as fists, in a nonchalant sort of boxing stance. Anton looked and waited. I came for an application, Socrates repeated. But I told you. I know what you said, but first you looked at my clothes and at my bald head. First your eyes said that this is some kind of old hobo or homeless man. And what does he want here when it isn't bottle redemption time? I did not. It doesn't matter, Socrates said quickly. He knew better than to let a white man in uniform finish a sentence. You have to give me an application. That's the law, too. Wait here, young Mr. Cryer said. He turned and strode away toward an elevated office that looked down along the line of cash registers. Socrates watched him go. So did the checkers and bag boys. He was their boss, and they knew when he was unhappy. They made worried glances at Socrates. Socrates stared back. He wondered if any of those young black women would stand up for him. Would they understand how far he'd come to get here? He'd traveled more than 14 miles from his little apartment down in Watts. They didn't have any supermarkets or jobs in his neighborhood, and all the stores along Crenshaw and Washington knew him as a bum who collected bottles and cans for a living. They wouldn't hire him. Socrates hadn't held a real job in over 37 years. He'd been unemployed for 25 months before the party with Shep, Fogel, and Muriel. They'd been out carousing or having a fun time. 3 young people, blind drunk. Back at Shep's, Muriel gave Socrates the eye. He danced with her until Shep broke it up. That means that Muriel asked Socrates to dance with her, and he did until Shep stopped them from dancing. But then Shep fell asleep. When Shep awoke to find them rolling on the floor, the fight broke out in earnest. That means that they really started to fight. Socrates knocked Shep back to the floor, and then he finished his business with Muriel, even though she was worried about her man. Oh, so Muriel was Shep's girlfriend. But when she started to scream and she hit Socrates with that chair, he hit her back. It wasn't until the next morning, when he woke up, that he realized that his friends were dead. Then he'd spent 27 years in prison. Now, 8 years free, 58 years old, he was starting life over again. Not one of those girls, nor Anton Cryer, was alive when he started his journey. If they were lucky, they wouldn't understand him.